Here are a few more ideas that can help rural communities, permaculture communities. One of them has to do with fiber production. I used to have a spinning wheel for many years. I like spinning yarns and threads. One of the problems when you're spinning yarn is that you're using the more expensive yarn fur, the fibers from the animal, to make the core of the yarn, even though it's really the fuzz surrounding it that gives you the warmth. So we're gonna avoid that. We're gonna take stiff plant fibers like flax or hemp, and we're gonna use those to spin the core of the fiber in the spinning wheel. And then we raise angora rabbits. I do recommend that you look up images of angora rabbits, and then you will want to raise angora rabbits too. Angora rabbits, you just brush them seasonally to get the shed of their fur, and then clean it and card it. And as you're spinning the stiff plant fiber, you're going to lay the angora fibers across that fiber, so they get bound up and point outward in all directions, kind of like a pipe cleaner. So you use much less angora fiber per length of yarn, and it's sticking out as a fuzz in all directions. So this takes a little bit more time and skill, but it saves you a lot of angora fur, which was the main limiting factor in terms of cost and labor and everything else. Once you've spun up a spool of this angora yarn with a hemp or flax core, then you can feed that into a knitting machine. And when you've knit with a knitting machine, you might not want to knit by hand anymore. So you knit long tubes of angora knit fibers, and they're stretchy, so they fit different people. You don't have to get an exact sizing. And angora is incredibly soft. It's one of the softest fibers on earth, and it's very warm. It keeps you really warm. You get a windbreaker on top, and you've got all the heating insulation you need for very cold temperatures. So with angora knit, you can have leggings and vests and arm sleeves. I recommend the ones that hook over your thumb. I like that. I like that design. And scarves and hoodies and all those other parts. So I recommend you make them as each separate component that you can add as needed and take off as needed, instead of making a giant knit jumper. Because if you get hot in a whole jumper, you can't take the whole jumper off without getting cold. So separate your sleeves from your vest, from your hood and scarf. Make the hood and the scarf is a good combo. And then leggings, all of them separate pieces. Knit as tubes with a plant fiber base with angora fibers across. And the angora rabbits, they would happily live inside one of those chanti, the adobe kiln-fired domes that I described in one of my earlier videos. It's climate controlled, keeps a nice, safe environment. And another one of the designs is to make ceramic pipes that have perforations. There's lots of little holes everywhere along the pipe, and you use iron to glaze the pipe so that it's a dark brownish black or grayish black, depending on kind of the reduction firing. So you got this darkened, blackened ceramic pipe. And then you have other ceramic cylinders that stack on top of each other the way hat boxes would, or ventilation shafts, if you think about ductwork. So those cylinders stack on top of each other, and you feed these pipes into this stack of cylinders. And that becomes your beehive. And the reason this is important for bees is because bees only spend about a third of their energy gathering honey, gathering nectar and pollen to turn into honey, and then they spend another third of their energy buzzing inside the hive, because the buzzing creates the heat and the airflow that dries out the nectar to turn it into honey. And then they have to spend another third of their energy buzzing all winter to keep the hive above 83 degrees Fahrenheit. Because if the hive temperature drops below 83, then the queen dies. So if you have these blackened pipes, all of them leading toward this cylinder of blackened ceramic, the sun hits the ceramic and warms the ceramic. And now the air is pulled in through these small holes and convects out the top of this chimney. So you're driving your airflow without the bees needing to buzz, and you're turning solar heating into hive heating. And it heats thick ceramic, so it continues to provide heat well into the evening and into the night. So the bees don't have to buzz as much inside the hive to evaporate the nectar, and they also don't have to buzz as much in the hive to keep it warm during the winter. And because they save that energy buzzing, that amount of energy that they saved is honey left over. And they also save time not having to buzz, and that time left over is more pollen and nectar that they collect. So you actually multiply the amount of honey that you produce from the same region using blackened pipes feeding into a blackened chimney as a hive. Just letting you know.